I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at TurtlesmithOK and find us at turtlesmith.com.
All right, well, welcome to Turtlesmith. We are a small business development company, and I am here with Dylan, who is the hostess with the mostest on our Sense of Direction podcast. She hosts that with Kevin, and that is an awesome podcast for young people, really for any people, but mostly geared towards young people to get good financial literacy, get them started off right in life. So unlike us older people, they're not starting off making a lot of mistakes that we made and have to make them up over 20 years. So welcome, Dylan.
Yes,
this is our
thank
first time
you.
together, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good
Happy
to
be
do this
here.
with you. Scott is out this week. Most of you know that Scott is a public accountant, and this is, of course, tax season. Yesterday was tax day, so he's taking a much-needed couple days off, and we will see him next week, I think. And let's just jump right into it. So, what do we got, Calvin?
So actually, we were going to talk about something else today, but then I had a little epiphany right before. So we were talking about businesses that you could start for about $3,500. We got word today that the average income tax return was about $3,400 this year. So we were putting together an episode that we figured, how can you take that, invest that, and start into a business? And you know what we found, John?
Yes.
We found out that a lot of the same businesses you could start for $3,500 are the exact same businesses that we covered you could start for $1,000. The difference between those two was the businesses you could start for $3,500 also included a significant budget, even more than the startup costs in some cases, for marketing and advertising. So that got me to thinking, what is the difference between marketing and advertising, and how important is that for a small business, especially one that's starting out? I looked up and I found out the difference between marketing and advertising. Marketing is the business practice that involves identifying, predicting, and meeting your customers' needs. Advertising is a business practice where a company pays to place its messaging or branding in a particular location. So one is, knowing your customer. The other was talking to your customer. So you kind of had a really interesting way that you came about starting JB Cases, that we were just talking about how actually you did your own marketing kind of during your design process. You want to talk to us about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have always been interested in how things are built and how they work. And so basically, I had a pool cue case that didn't protect my cue. So I was looking around and seeing what my fellow pool players were using, and a lot of them were using cases that are unprotective. I would talk to people about it. When I had my first case, which was did keep the cue inside, but it had a problem that the cues would just constantly go lower and lower until you had to kind of turn it over and beat on the case to get the cues out. Mm-hmm. So players would say, wow, like when I first got this case, it was really cool and protective, but now, it's a pain in the ass to get the cues out.
Yeah.
So they obviously wanted something that was protective, but also easy to use. So when I had the opportunity to build cases, I thought, okay, let me see if I can make that. And then that's what I presented to the customers because I knew that's what they wanted. So that was me learning what people wanted in the performance of the product.
Yeah.
But what I didn't really learn was, the demographics, that I didn't know anything about my customers, average salaries, jobs, anything like that, how long they played, how fanatical they were about their equipment, anything like that. But it worked out. Now we've been doing it for what is it now? Gosh, do I even have to say it at this point? 35 years.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, Dylan is not only a host on Sense of Direction, but she also handles our marketing here for Turtlesmith. So you put together marketing plans and marketing. Give me the right word here because I'm not finding it.
Campaigns.
Marketing briefs and portfolios for different
market
clients.
reports.
There you go. Market reports.
There we go.
Yeah. So
How do you go about looking at a business, even if it's a business you have no familiarity with? Just like John said, he understood the pool player because he's a pool player himself.
yeah.
But he didn't look at anything about demographics. What is kind of like the model that you kind of apply to each business that you create these reports for?
Yeah, so first I try to find like data reports or like Statistica, just to kind of get me in the market. I want to kind of understand the market first, and then I will go back to the business and then see how their customers fit into the market, because not every business will have like their local customers might not be the same as like the entirety of global market like needs. So I read a lot of reports. I go into different like Facebook groups and things online. I just kind of like type in like maybe a couple different keywords of what their business uses. Like for Chester's, I went into like pool hall or like pool rooms and pool halls. It was a little bit hard to find the actual data numbers on that, because something I found out is that if you're in college or something, you go into data marketing, data research, because they charge like 10 grand just to read a 50-page document.
So what you're saying is we in the wrong business.
I had no idea that was even a thing. But yeah, so it's a lot of kind of scavenging, like different like facts, numbers, because I want to see percentages. I want to be able to like tell our clients like, hey, like this is the average salary, or this is, there's like 45% of pool players are, I don't know if this is correct, I'm making this up on the spot, but like 50 or 45% of pool players are men or something. Like actually in my research, I did find that there is a boom in the younger generations and women for pool. But yeah, I just kind of like do the background research. Like I kind of go backwards and then I tailor it to the client and what their needs are. Because maybe they don't really care about all customers. Maybe they want to focus on driving in like one thing for a promotion that they're doing.
So basically, I think that a lot of small businesses, they know a lot of their customers personally, by first name. They know this person. They may know a little bit about what that person does, what their job is. They formed relationships with these people, but they don't really know about the overall demographics and how to reach them, how to reach more than the people who just happen to walk into their business.
Right.
And once again, we come back to the business owner, small business owner often wears all hats. So it's hard for them to get this information. And by the same token, where these marketing reports are $10,000 to read and things like that, there's one that in pool, there's an association called the Sporting Goods Marketing Association, and they do produce such a report, and they charge about $3,000 for that thing. And I'll tell you this. This is one of those, if I had a dime for everybody that came up to me and said, if I can only sell 1% to 1% of the people who play pool, I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
Because the Sporting Goods Marketing Association has consistently found that as a sport, pool consistently ranks in the top 5. Sometimes I've seen it as high as the top 2 of what people report. But what they say is that that of the respondents, because it's a survey,
Right.
the respondents basically say 30 million people in America report that they play pool twice a year.
Yeah.
And so this is what they consider to be pool players, right? That's the statistic.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's
Now-
the other thing is because you have to kind of break it down like on like, are they just a casual? Like if they're at a bar, do
Exactly.
they play pool? Or are they actually like, no, I invested in my I invested in my queue. I invest in like playing time. I practice every week or
Right.
whatever.
And that is the statistic that they don't track.
Yeah.
They don't track like how many people are league players, how many people are enthusiasts,
Yeah.
And how can you use that data? How do you learn those customers? So that is another thing, where if you have a company like Turtlesmith, for example, that can go out and get as much of this data and as much of this information as we possibly can without breaking the bank, that can be helpful to small business owners and learn your market.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, John, because you bring up an interesting point there about trust and trusting the numbers, trusting the data. And we were kind of talking a little bit earlier about new businesses and how they can understand marketing and their early days as a business. So with that being said, how much would you trust the numbers that you've been given? Let's say you get a marketing report. Hopefully it doesn't cost you $10,000, but let's just say you do pay some decent money to a reputable firm and get this market report back. Do you think it is more of a balancing act of learning your clientele in person versus trusting the numbers that you've been given?
Yes, I do think that there is a certain balancing act. I think the people that produce the reports, they have a duty to really try hard to separate the wheat from the chaff, to try to understand what is nonsense, and what makes sense. Because the business owner is going to call you out on it. And you have to be able to defend the numbers that you're giving. It's just like AI hallucinating these days. You could go ask ChatGPT, how many people play pool, and it might give you a number like 79 million people play pool or something, right? But if you can't verify that number with anyone, then what good is it to you? So I think that the better that the report is produced with things that seem sensible and our sourcing is verifiable, that will make the small business owner feel more confident about relying on that and then going into the advertising recommendations to get to that market.
Okay.
That would be my opinion.
All right, and let me ask you this, Dylan. If I am that small business who's looking at, or I'm that person who's wanting to be an entrepreneur and starting a small business, I've got my $3,500 income tax refund back, and I've got all the cash to do it. I don't owe anything else. So if I'm gonna go spend $1,000 to start up this curb painting business, what are some cheap but effective ways that I can advertise myself out there to the client base and not have to spend a ton on finding out who those people are and where they are?
Yeah. Unfortunately, social media is that avenue. It's cheap, it's free. You have a phone, you have a camera, make a video of you spray painting, talk over it, kind of go through your supplies. I mean, you kind of make don't put your mindset in like, oh, my Instagram is my business. Your business is the curb painting, but the online presence gets you so many more eyes. So if someone's like on Instagram, they're in the local area, tag like I was at the Home Depot in your area or whatever, and I just got a deal on these, whatever. That adds location to your profile. And so then that will, like, anyone else that's on Instagram or whatever in your area will then now kind of get that geolocation. Like, it's almost like a little alert.
I ain't gonna hold you. I'm finna pull up to Home Depot and see if I can find them little 1 cent deals that I be seeing people getting online. Man, you see,
Yeah.
somebody walked out of there with an AC unit the other day for a penny. I said, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
So I would add to that. So I think what we discussed earlier was like, the same businesses you can start for 3,500, you can start for 1,000.
Mhm.
Um, so the recommendation I believe that we had discussed was, then start the business for 1,000 and spend the other 1,500 on your marketing, right?
Yeah.
And or on your advertising, and so learn your customers, learn what's needed. One thing you could do, for example, as a very cheap way to just figure out what's needed is literally drive down the street filming people's curbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the sorry state of them, and then just step up to people's houses and say, "Hey, can I do your curb for free?" That
Yeah.
that seems to be an effective way.
Oh,
You
yeah.
you got a lot of lawn care guys
Yeah.
online doing that. You got people going in and rebuilding people's fences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
These are like guys that some people do this. Their whole business is that doing it for free, and basically they're making money on the views on YouTube.
Yeah.
But there's other people who actually do it as a business, and then they do the free thing to get the attention,
Yeah.
and it works out really well. So that tracks with what you're saying. You don't have to necessarily spend a lot of money. But I will say this, I think it's worth it to take a little bit of that money and decide on an actual ad budget for your local area. So if
Yeah.
you're going to use Facebook, or if you're going to use, Instagram or TikTok or whatever, Facebook I know charges, for ads and things
Yeah.
like that. So and then they'll say we'll get you so much reach. And I will see in my Facebook feed lots and lots of local ads.
Yeah.
And they have been effective. I have called a few of these people, and I've gotten quotations, and once or twice I've given them some business. So they're effective.
Yeah.
I can say that at least in my own personal experience that they're effective. So I think that was the advice that we were talking earlier is, like, let's say you spend $1,000 in supplies, you spend a couple $100 in ads,
Mhm.
and you spend, a little bit of your time to go and try to figure out, like, well, first of all, like, what can I reasonably do?
Yeah.
Are you the one doing the business, or are you going to hire somebody to do it for you? How much of a business is this? Is it a side gig business? Is it something that you plan on growing?
Right.
Do you have a plan for that? So
Kind of like in the curb painting example, maybe I start off painting curbs, then I add in painting designs on mailboxes. Then maybe I take the profits and buy a bigger sprayer. Now I can go do lines in parking lots.
Yeah.
yeah,
Things
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Or other businesses that you guys found out were like what, bouncy houses, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Like party rental.
Party
inflatables.
rentals, things like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do here. So when we talk about what is a business and what is like a side gig, there's a lot of businesses that started off as side gigs,
Yeah.
but no matter whether it is a side gig or an actual business, the main point that we're talking about today is how do you get attention? How do you know who to target and how to target them to get those eyeballs on what you're doing? Because without that, you're just going to be sitting in your car lonely in a parking lot with a trunk full of spray paint.
A
And,
bunch of Rust-Oleum.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it truly is one of those things where people get into this mindset is if I build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And that rarely works out,
Right.
especially in today's distraction economy,
Yeah.
because the way it's going, and unfortunately the social media is basically like a slot machine in your hand,
Yeah.
and there's going to come a day when future biologists are going to point to the fact that we ended up with evolutionary carpal tunnel thumb, where future humans are just going to be like this all day long because that's
And
what
their
we're
neck
doing.
is just hunched
Yeah.
over.
We're gonna be like this.
Don't forget our hunchbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
we're gonna
that's
have
that's
those.
unfortunately what's happening, right? And it's
Right.
happening with everybody. It doesn't matter young or old or whatever. So you've only got a few seconds to catch somebody's attention.
Yeah.
So make it good. Take the
Right.
time to study these things. Copy what other people are doing. If you see something that's good, copy it and say, because there's plenty of, there's enough, there's never enough things to distract people, right?
Yeah.
Facts.
So that being the case, you might as well give yourself the chance to be that distraction that catches that person's eye at the right moment where they need whatever it is that you're offering.
Yeah.
Make it funny, you know?
You know, we just did that video about talking about the Masters and Augusta National. And one of the things that when I was doing some research for that, they said that we were talking about the food and how much of a loss they take on the food. But also at the same time, on the back end of that, one thing I didn't share with you guys was that for culinary programs across the country, their Super Bowl is to have Augusta on their resume. Because if you have Augusta National on your resume as a culinary person, then it opens doors that you probably couldn't have opened in any of the amount of time yourself.
Yeah.
What that kind of gets me to here is just a resume builder. And so for a lot of small businesses, especially ones who have been established for a year or two and have a really good record, you know, maybe some good reviews online, another good resource or another good tip is to look at your local government, your city, state, and county government, and look at their vendor list and see if there's contracts that are open for what you do. Because a lot of times being able to add that onto your resume as a business, hey, you know, we were contracted by the state of Oklahoma or the city of Oklahoma City or the county, you know, that boosts your profile a lot further than, you know, that next few years in business is just doing good business can even do.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's funny. I see this often, you know, that the Japanese will often do things like people will rent themselves out as sort of a walking companion or you know, I've seen people like they'll rent themselves out, like, you know, to be yelled at, stuff like this, you know, or they'll rent this. Oh, the one that was the best is the guy, there's people over there that rent themselves out to quit.
Oh,
They'll go
really?
into a job and quit because it's considered to be dishonorable to go quit your job,
Yeah.
you know? So they'll hire somebody to walk in and say, on behalf of so and so, I quit.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
I would love to have that job because I'd add a little, I'd go over the top and add like a little flair into it. I'd probably do a dance, play a harmonica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Hilarious.
interesting, you know, but the interesting part about that is, you know, one of the businesses that I see that I honestly, I kind of like think about like, why do people pay to do this? But then we got a big dog now and he's crapping all over the backyard. So people clean up poop, dog poop,
Yep.
you know, go in someone's backyard and clean up all the poop. And I'm like, I don't think I'd ever pay for that, but I can see why people would, you
Yeah.
know? So that's, you know, that's a business you could start.
Oh yeah.
There's, you know, tons of little like one-off services, you know, obviously dog walker's been a big one for a long time, you know, in big cities and stuff like that. But if you just put some creativity to it and think about what kind of little services can I offer to people, you know, look how big delivery is now and how many
Yeah.
people are doing side gigs on delivery and everything. I mean, I don't necessarily want to go to the grocery store anymore. You know, I just want to get on the phone
Yeah.
and
Now, I don't want nobody else picking my fruits and veggies.
well, you can order everything other than that and then just go to the grocery store and get your fruits and veggies.
That's true. You could do that.
Yeah. I read an article this morning that was like, most amount of money that people have made through their side gigs, and honestly it kind of made me a little bit sad just because there was a lot of like 65 plus and they're like, yeah, I drive Uber all day because I like to have someone to talk to, and then it was like I made $40,000 in a year, and then there was like a subsection of the article and it was like
Expenses.
he made or Uber made $40,000 and he walked away with $7,000. So I was like, your headline's a little misleading because I thought he made $40,000.
Yeah, this is the revenue is profit.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what though? On the flip side of that, I don't know how risque we can get here, but there's a lady that's going viral right now online because She does DoorDash, and you know they they have to take the picture when they leave the food out there.
Yeah.
Well, she makes sure that
Selfies?
No, she
her
includes her
feet.
feet.
Oh.
And
And
so
she gets
it's
tips.
like the little inset on there. I think the
No
person's
way.
the
Yeah.
person's order was like $15-$16. They tipped her an extra 50.
Yeah. So I think like
How does she know that they have a foot fetish?
well,
With that big old, if you paying,
Yeah.
if you gonna pay $65 for a $15 McDonald's order, I think
Yeah.
the feet got something to do with it.
and I think like the first time it happened, she didn't realize like her foot was like she was wearing flip flops and like her foot happened to be in the photo, and the guy tipped her like $30 or something. She was like, "Let me try this," and then so she tried it for the next like for all of the rest, and then she just saw that her tips just went up. I was like, "That's so easy.
Yeah,
You're already out there."
She out there hacking the system.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
telling
So
you.
many.
John's thinking about getting a pedicure right
Hell
now.
yeah,
I'm telling
I
you.
was. Hell yeah, I'm going straight to the pedicure spot, man. My shit's gonna be sparkling.
Well, before we get out of here after posting this on onlyfeet.com,
I just don't know with my with my little beer belly here or my Dr. Pepper belly. I don't know if I can get to my feet. So.
you know what they say, John. It's all about the angles, man. It's just
Yeah.
all about the angles. Any other tips or wise words you guys have for people who are looking to get into entrepreneurship with limited capital and how they can smartly or better use that capital in marketing and advertising?
Yeah, don't quit your day job with a $3,500 steak. Okay.
That's solid advice.
Yeah. I just wanted to slightly add, if you're having a little bit of mixed feelings about going to people's, like providing your service for free, don't think of it as like you're giving away your time for free. Think of it as you're building your portfolio for your next customer, and then you can look back and be like, look at all of these curbs I have
Exactly.
painted, or
Exactly. That
Yeah.
is so strong. That is such a strong advice right there that it can't be overstated how strong that is. When you can show up at someone's house and or whatever, or even online or whatever, and you can say, I did all this,
yeah.
and there's a nice catalog to choose from, that is so strong.
Yeah.
So excellent advice, Dylan.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back next week. We can't promise if Scott's going to be here or not, because I think he's going to get a little taste of vacation and go crazy. But just in case he's not, we will be back with you next week. Check out our live Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Sense of Direction dropping every Friday, and the Turtlesmith podcast dropping to you every Wednesday. Say goodnight to the people, yo.
Good night.
Good night.
Like and subscribe.
Yes,
Okay? I know
like,
Calvin just said that,
subscribe.
but
Watch our short videos.
Yeah.
Comment.
All the things.
Yeah, comment below what
comment.
you would do.
Yeah, comment. Tell us what you think,
Yeah.
man.
Scott's going to come back like, what the hell are y'all doing?
What are we doing? All we gotta do to get Scott back here is tell him what we're about to start.
Uh-oh. He will be breaking the door down. All right, we out.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at Turtlesmith OK and find us at turtlesmith.com.